On this episode of the Church Security Made Simple podcast, I'm going to be talking about critical thinking drills and why they should be an essential component of your church safety program. Now, I know a lot of you that listen to this podcast are volunteer safety leaders. You could be a church business administrator, you could be a facilities leader, or you could be a paid employee overseeing safety and security. What you all have in common is that you are running a church safety program, and critical thinking drills are an important piece to empower your staff to make the right decisions and for you as the leader to know that they are making the right decisions. So why is critical thinking important? Well, we want to know that when adverse situations happen, that when our volunteers are called to take action, that when our staff need to lean into a challenging situation, we need to know that they are making effective decisions based off our policy, our procedure, our protocol. We need to make sure that they're making effective decisions. Now, how do we do that? Now, the Marines say, and I'm sure it's the Marines that are credited with saying this, the Marines often say, the body cannot go where the mind hasn't been. Let me say that again. The body cannot go where the mind hasn't been. So we are going to conduct scenario training at our churches. We're just going to do a few things. It's going to speed up our reaction time. So by going through scenarios, it's going to speed up how we can respond in those emergency situations because we've been there before, because I understand how this plays out, because I know the options available to me. I know what I need to do in this situation. So scenario training is a great way to speed up our reaction times. Scenario training is also going to make sure that we stay close to what our objective is. Our objective is to resolve this situation, but we're not going to go into it with a fixed mindset. We're going to understand the facts. We're going to listen to the facts. So it's going to help us stay objective. If we practice critical thinking drills, it's going to help us stay objective. It's going to help us speak to the facts. And we're not going to go in with a fixed mindset as to how this is going to play out. We're going to see the information unfold in front of us, and then we're going to respond. So what can happen if you don't practice critical thinking drills? Well, that is a great question. Well, what happens if we don't practice critical thinking? Well, we have a poor decision making. And I have this when leaders reach out to me and say, Simon, someone on our safety team approached someone and that person said that they felt they were being picked on because of the color of their skin. Or someone felt that they were rude to them, or there was a situation unfolding and our safety team didn't ask the ushers and greeters. If they'd asked the ushers and greeters, they would have had the full story to know this person wasn't suspicious. This person just wears that coat every week. It's very normal for them. They've got some mental illness, but there was no threat picture here. But they didn't ask the ushers and the greeters, so they didn't have the full picture, so they made a poor decision. So critical thinking really allows us to make good decisions, and when we don't train for that, we can make poor decisions. Not going through critical thinking drills also can limit some of our problem solving, because it means we can't break down complex problems because we've not thought about them. We haven't practiced them. We're not open to new ideas, new ways. We're not listening. So critical thinking drills are a great way to break down complex problems because your brain is thinking, you've been trained, you understand how I can resolve this situation. Without critical thinking, it's going to be very difficult for your teams to break down more complex problems. And without critical thinking, we don't have a workforce, volunteer or paid, that can challenge the status quo or seek new ways to solve problems. We want our teams to be inquisitive. We want them to ask questions. We want them to think critically as they resolve problems around safety and security. And if we don't educate them, if we don't guide them, we don't help them, it's very difficult for them to develop those critical thinking skills. So I have a cool way to test your staff and volunteers. And I've got a few versions of this. So a little while ago, around 6 months ago, one of my clients said to me, Simon, I wish there was a great way to train my team on critical thinking just before we start a church service, knowing that I have 5, 10, 15 minutes with the maximum. I wonder if there's a way to do this. And I spoke to my client, actually Josh was his name, and I said, I wonder if we could create a pack of playing cards which have different scenarios which would help people with their critical thinking. So that is what I created. We've actually now got 2 versions. We have a safety team version and a conflict de-escalation version. And they're simply a pack of playing cards that have different scenarios in them designed to test critical thinking. I'll just read a couple out. It says, an agitated and highly aggressive man demands an immediate audience with your pastor. What would you do? And we have the one here that says, I covered this on a previous podcast episode. Let's talk about this one. The worship center rear door has been left open for the 4th time in as many weeks by the worship team. What do you do? So all of these cards are just very simple scenarios which are going to test your critical thinking as to how you're going to respond. I'll just read one last one here. It's a Wednesday night at the church and the youth group are meeting when there's a power cut. You're on safety team duty. What do you do? I imagine there's some people at churches that don't even know where the power switch is within their church. So each of these cards are really designed to test a person's critical thinking. So I'm going to drop a link below as to where you can get hold of a set. They may help your ministry, so I'd encourage you to check out those cards. But I just want to drop in and just do a short episode about critical thinking, explain why it's important to show that you need to be doing it. And please check out my critical thinking cards that I have available. We have a safety team deck and we have a conflict de-escalation deck. So you stay safe. You have a blessed day. Those are my views on critical thinking. As always, I'd love to know, what does your church do around critical thinking? Are you training your staff on critical thinking? Are there other ways that you test their knowledge to make sure that they're being objective, that they can work through complex problems? So when you aren't there, you know that your team can still help and support the ministry and do so in an ethical and a right way without causing any problems to the program. So you have a blessed day and I shall see you in our next episode. Take care, everybody.